Hello and welcome to Force for Thought. Today, Matt is going rogue.
Matt, what are you going rogue about?
Guys, today I'm going rogue about the Star Wars Intricacies. That's something I've been talking about on this podcast for a very long time now. Okay, hello everybody, and welcome back. Today is going to be an interesting episode. If this is your first episode you're listening to, I'm so sorry. Maybe you should go back and listen to some other ones as well, because I feel like it's been a long road coming. And I have a lot of Star Wars intricacies that I want to talk about. And these are things that, yes, maybe they're funny, or maybe it's presented funny, but these are things that I actually think about when we're watching Star Wars, and specifically Star Wars because the world is so built out. I have a couple of ones to start off with. I also just want to see your guys' opinion, and again, this can be very loose. With that being said, my first Rogue One, I talked about Cherry Coke to a large extent. An update on the Cherry Coke in Columbus is now being sold again in theaters. So,
Oh, thank God.
Sick.
I went back to Cinemark in Valley View and asked for a Cherry Coke, and they looked at me like I was crazy.
Because they don't have it?
Yeah, still, I just figured it was a fluke. It's not a fluke. So there's an update from my last Rogue One a couple months ago. So, what do I mean by Star Wars intricacies, I guess? There's certain things that plague my mind that I mentioned on this podcast before, such as specifically Star Wars real estate. Let's start with the creme de la creme, which is the one that really plagues my mind, which is if you're in an apartment building, are there certain floors or levels? Are they built specifically for certain species, or is it random? Like, how can a Star Wars apartment, for example, or even a house, have the same bathroom for all these different species? I guess we don't know all the intricacies of their bodies. At least I don't. This is something that you guys might know about.
Yeah, we really don't know. I'm rereading a lot of the High Republic right now, and the High Republic, a lot of the themes and sort of ideas center around "We are all the Republic," and that's a big motto in the High Republic. And obviously, that doesn't go for the whole Star Wars galaxy per se, but at least during this era, I feel like if they did separate by species on like a floor in an apartment building, that's flirting pretty close to segregation, and that's kind of spits in the face of "We are all the Republic."
Yes, exactly. So that's the other
But
thing,
they're
right?
all built to their own specifications, though. So they would be separate, but they would be equal.
But then,
Exactly, and that makes it okay.
Yeah.
But then that's also tough, right? So if you have just say the first floor, the whole floor would have to be just say like if the full family of the Hutts are moving in, what are the ceilings looking like? You have to have obviously bigger spaces. But then if you have a smaller species on top of them, that has to be insane to have the actual. I'm just trying to picture how that would actually look if you're an architect. And if you want to get into how the blueprints, I guess, would even work out, can you imagine?
Yeah, I'm thinking more about the plumbing system because that's shared throughout the entire building vertically.
Correct.
Like you can horizontally build a room to the size of whatever species is going in there, but you got to share the same pipes with a hut, and those got to be twice as big, flowing through your the sewer pipes are going to be the size of your whole apartment.
Exactly. And then we're talking also at a single city, let alone what do different planets look like as well. And then is there different real estate agents for all of these different species as well? And then, this is a side tangent, I guess, as well, but we've never seen a communication device that's big in Star Trek, where usually, I think it's maybe in the MCU as well, they have like this, there's a little earpiece that just basically translates what they're saying to other species. But like, what is the dialect? I mean, if you're looking in Europe right now, I feel like people in France can speak like 3 different languages, right? English is presumably one of them. I feel like that's a really popular one. But like when you're in a galaxy full of different planets, how do you communicate with every single species ever as well?
How many different languages have we heard in Star Wars?
I don't know.
Because every time I hear a foreign language, I feel like the subtitles always say Huttese.
Yeah, there is a lot
for
of
all the
Hutties.
forein language ones. That's hilarious.
Not all of
Not
them,
all,
but I feel like
a lot of
often.
them.
Yeah.
And because you have different species talking, so
it's
they
not
always
just a
sound
lot
little
of
bit
them,
different.
but it's like all of them that take place on Tatooine, which we just see Tatooine so often. So like
Yes.
Sebulba and the people in the Book of Boba Fett, they all speak Huttese. I'm thinking
Makshaiz, the Ithorian from Book of Boba Fett, had a translator. Like an actual device
yeah,
on
I
him
mean,
that
they have
translated
protocol
in real
droids
time.
like C-3PO. He's
Yeah.
fluent in over 6 million forms of communication.
So there we go.
And he was just programmed in some back alley slave's house. So who knows how many forms of communication a high-end droid has.
That's a great point, though. That's something I have not considered, is legitimately that you have protocol droids who are able to translate for you. I mean, obviously, that we can kind of get into class systems and stuff too, in the fact of like who can afford a protocol droid. Those are presumably aren't given out unless they are like Obama phones back in 2008 or so. So maybe there's protocol droids like Obama phones.
Could be.
I haven't thought about that in a long time. Because go real quick, because I feel like there is a. I'm going to teeter in and out of like why I like Star Wars a lot, and then versus like why this is intriguing my mind. Because in my mind, it's kind of like the Harry Potter world, right? The Wizarding world, and it's how everything, in that world, everything is crooked and doesn't make much sense architecturally. It would obviously fall in real life. And yet it's very cool for that world and things make sense and things are kooky and weird. But in Star Wars, I feel like, I can imagine an apartment building if you split it in half and seeing all the different sizes, levels and stuff and those pipes all being different and it being manufactured specifically for this certain thing. But in reality also, is it more humanly structured where it is more boring, right? Where it's just like, yep, there are a certain amount of, certain species being able to live in this certain section, which means that would only have to be X amount of that species in that building at a time, which is so hard to fill. What is the real estate property like as well? I know I'm dragging a little bit too much on the real estate because I have a little bit more to get to, but
all I can think about right now are the huts, because I know that the huts are like a criminal syndicate and everything, but God bless them for being able to overcome all of these systemic biases going against them and being able to. I mean, they have palaces. They were able to afford their own protocol droids. They only speak Huttese.
But there's got to be that one weird cousin off by themselves.
Yeah, he was in, or she was in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Who was the Clone Wars Hutt? Not Zillow, but I keep wanting to say Zillow. Zero.
Yeah, Zero the Hutt.
Zero the Hutt, yeah.
I keep thinking of the Anzellans, the Babu Frick people from The Mandalorian Season 3. They had their own little tiny house.
See, which is a huge, it was a huge day for me, Luke.
Yeah, that was a big day. Do you think, it brings up the whole conversation of, equality versus equity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Hutts have to pay the same in rent for a space that's 3 times as large to live in versus the Anzellans? Because, the space, the property costs more, but that sucks that they're just born this
you would
way.
either be... No, I think you would have to pay for how much space you're using.
That is so unlucky. How do the Hutts?
This is like
how are the Hutts so profitable then? Because I assume wages are the same. You're going to say Men in Black with the worms?
No.
Oh no, but go down that route. Yeah, I like
going to
that.
say the movie Downsizing with Matt Damon, where people were shrinking themselves so that they could live more comfortably because your money goes farther because you can buy less stuff and live longer, basically.
But then Kristen Wiig backs out at the last minute and has a really weird scene where she's bald and has a hood on.
Yeah, that whole movie was just consisted of whole really weird scenes after a really interesting idea.
Yes, correct. That's they
did
started,
not like that movie.
Same. I don't think any of us did.
Kind of like this. And in addition to the Enzellan home, I remember watching Book of Boba Fett with Matt, and we were blown away when we saw inside Jabba's palace, specifically the garage and the kitchen.
Huge.
We were like, "Oh, this is so fascinating."
Yeah, it's
and
Matt,
the
exactly.
chef droid with like 100 knives on his hands.
Yeah,
that guy was
also
so cool.
This is, I think it is like New York City though, right? It's like if you're gonna get a 300 square foot apartment, you're going to pay less in the same building, even though in the same building somebody just has a 900 square foot apartment. So presumably you're paying more for the space you're using. With that being said, it is odd because that is not a choice. That is a necessity. I think is what you're saying, Luke.
Right, yeah. Like the equity versus equality thing. Like a person with disabilities gets subsidized by the government because they don't have a choice to live a more lavish lifestyle because it just costs more to deal with their disabilities, and that's basically what we're talking about. Like Hutts have, they're not disabilities.
They're not disabled though, yeah. This is
but
just
they're
how
born,
they exist.
I know they're born that way, and it's obviously a disadvantage, and it's more expensive, and it's not their fault.
Yeah, that's true. And this is something. This is a big drop on the pod. Max and I both are lefties, and I feel like dealing with that aversion, which is so small. But I can't imagine for the Hutts what they're dealing with all the time as well. I'm comparing us to the Hutts now because we're lefties.
Are actually the most marginalized group in society.
yeah.
That's true. They're
There's
the only ones that don't have the culture war one because I still hate them.
It comes from scissors. You don't know this, but there are right-handed scissors, and it's every pair of scissors.
It is. That's true. I'm, I guess, semi-ambidextrous as well, so I don't have that big of a problem. But like left-handed notebooks would be a better thing to use all the time because I smear the ink everywhere on the page. My hand always hurts. And in high school, there was no left-handed desks. No, there was 3 left-handed desks. Like it was like 1940 or something.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I remember having left-handed desks in college, but most of them were broken, probably because of right-handed people like me that sat down, became furious, and threw it across the room.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Anyway, another thing. Moving on from real estate, and I mean, we can always jump back into real estate, but in the Star Wars real estate, because this is going to be this is a snippet. I feel like of what I'm.
My
what I'm
takeaway so
thinking.
far is I'm totally understanding why the Hutts turned to crime.
Yeah, I
They-
agree.
They
And
got the shit end of the stick genetically.
they did, and that's not. I mean, that's just one species too. We're talking how many other ones that are. It's gotta be so
yeah.
weird. What is the refrigeration system looking like from the Frog Lady from Mandalorian? You know what I mean?
She needs her whole apartment refrigerator. You're right.
That's what I'm saying. There's got to
That's
be
tough.
a bunch of different things that have to be specified for you. So again, maybe that's more of a housing system, maybe not necessarily a renting system. But like I'm just thinking that's on one city, right? We're talking about how can that be universally applied to every single thing, right?
Well, I
Every
don't
single-
think. I mean, I'm picturing Coruscant here, where all the different species intermix and live together.
Yeah.
I believe in most worlds that they are pretty. They're not segregated, but it's their home planet, and that's
Yeah.
where most of the people of these species live. Like Kashyyyk is designed around Wookiees, and
That's
that's
true.
the only example I have. But I like to think Frog Lady's home planet is designed around the very delicate and necessary restrictions around hatching your eggs.
Interesting. So I have two tangents real quick. One is so if every single species basically is inhabited by its own planet, obviously we see a lot. But then and again, we see a lot of in Star Wars. If you're on a planet, you're seeing a lot of different species, right? So it's much like I feel like in the U.S. you kind of grow up and you can move away from your hometown, and I feel like that's the equivalent of moving away to a different planet or something. Because I feel like every single time we see Star Wars, it's always some sort of other person on a planet, right? Like.
Are there that many though? Because I'm trying to think. Like on Rhodia
Mm-hmm.
or where do the Twi'leks live? The
Ryloth.
Ryloth. They're like all Twi'leks there.
Yeah.
On Gleon Salm, and they're all Natallans and Quarrens. I mean, that's an underwater
Sure.
civilization, so that's a little unfair. But I think
Leon Psalm?
that's where the Natallans are from. Yeah.
That's the planet?
Mm-hmm.
Moncala?
Mon Cala is also a water-based planet. Is that where? That's where the Mon Cala arc. That's where the Water Wars arc is in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever actually see a Gleon Salm or if it's just a fact that the Natallan people are from there. Fun fact: it's also where what's his name? Beckett wanted to go retire to learn to play the Valichord
So if he's retiring there, where is he staying?
underwater
That's what I'm saying.
to play the
That's-
Valichord. That
So
line,
he just has a rebreather, just 24/7.
yeah, or a
That's-
big submarine.
So he has to know something that we don't, right? Obviously. And then I feel like right, I mean, he has to because I'm just like, there's a disconnect of why he would want to do that and the information that we are given.
And maybe the Valichord is like an underwater instrument.
Yeah, who knows? That would be impossible to play, I feel like, unless it's a string instrument. But even then, it's probably an instrument that we haven't even seen. You're looking at how many I have to go.
No.
But so, the other thing is, so are you thinking that like, in a world, there is one single world potentially. There is people with American accents and then British accents, and that's basically about it. Because I feel like the amount of people that have accents are so wild. It's basically just American accents and British accents. Obviously, in real life, we know that they casted mostly British people.
So let's
American
talk about
people, so-
accents in Star Wars for
Sure.
a while, because that is an interesting topic,
Mhm.
and I feel like the Clone Wars really leaned into it, where they just went to a different planet and they just gave each planet its own distinct accent.
I love that. The Twi'leks have a French accent on
Yes.
Ryloth.
Yeah.
Inexplicably, but I like
That's
that world building.
And one of my favorite things about the Clone Wars, and Luke, you can back me up here, is that we get to hear Kit Fisto talk for the
Oh,
first time.
Love Kit Fisto.
Who is
Yeah.
Nautilin, and for those of you who don't know what a Nautilin looks like, it kind of looks like someone with a bunch of dreadlocks. And
but fish.
we have
Fish dreadlocks.
Yes, but amphibious. And Luke always talks about this theory that they were kind of writing this episode, and somebody said, "All right, so what accent are we giving Kit Fisto?" And everyone just kind of looked around the table like,
Well, we all know what accent he has.
"Yeah." Like, there wasn't really a discussion. They're like, "All right, I think we figured that one out." They gave him a thick Jamaican accent.
I think
And then
I've
Kit
talked
Fisto
about
talks,
this.
and he's like, "Hey, man."
I think I've talked about this on the podcast before. The how it works with nature versus nurture in terms of the Jedi growing up on Coruscant. All of them in a core world surrounded by the Jedi Order, yet they all grow to have the accents of their home world, which seems interesting and
Yeah.
unexpected.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's so odd. It's like they have to. Their
So
brains
it's definitely a naturalized thing in
Yeah.
the Star Wars universe, not nurture.
which is very odd. And so then going off of the other topic of different planets and how vast it is, we have never seen a cell phone in Star Wars, but you have comm links, right? Little communication devices.
Yeah,
Do you
hollows.
think there is? Okay, so who's the service provider of a hollow? Do you think there's a Verizon or a T-Mobile-esque company?
You're not going to believe this, but a lot of the High Republic revolves around that.
No way.
I-
The service providers of a galaxy.
Real quick,
far
I have two
away.
more things, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say because I am enthralled. But the other option thing is, and I'm interested in they cover this because I don't know if they would, is in the on Earth. I was literally trying to think of what we call this is insane, like we're part of the galaxy. In this world,
Where is here called?
yes, we have to pay per minute if we're abroad in a different country. What does that look like on a different planet? Anyway, Luke, please enlighten me.
I think the Republic is not quite so capitalistic in its nature,
Yep.
and so they don't charge like that. But yeah, in the High Republic, Phase 1 starts about 200 years before the Skywalker saga, and the inciting incident is that they launch the Starlight Beacon into the Outer Rim, because the Outer Rim is so far away and it's not yet been completely settled and like established as part of the Republic yet. And the Starlight Beacon is the Republic's way to reach out to the Outer Rim and be a presence there. And it increases communications and awareness and presence in the Outer Rim for all those people. And then it gets destroyed, and the Nihil, the bad guys in the High Republic, take control of the Outer Rim, and the Republic cannot make contact with the Outer Rim anymore because
Interesting.
the Starlight Beacon was destroyed. And then Phase 2 goes 200 years earlier, so there's no Starlight Beacon, absolutely no contact with the Outer Rim like that, like any sort of hollow internet or anything. And so they have Pathfinder teams that go out and deliver messages by hand.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I could not believe
And
that
they have like
this-
communications buoys around certain planets that can make contact with the core worlds if they're close enough.
Oh,
but
communication buoys. That's
sometimes
love
they
it.
get sabotaged, and then
I
you
would
can't make
imagine.
contact, and they got to send out more Pathfinder teams. But the Pathfinder teams have a lag to when they get there, and they don't
Yeah.
always. And it's easy to make fake messages from Pathfinder teams.
Yeah,
It's
that's
really interesting.
That's
I've
fascinating.
said it before 100 different times for 100 different reasons. But read the High Republic.
I need to.
It goes so deep into the lore of the Jedi and what it means to be a Jedi, but also service providers. You
Yeah.
learn a lot about it.
Yeah.
The Verizon of Star Wars.
So it is like a monopoly, though. Presumably, there's like one person who wants to build this Pathfinder.
Who made Starlight? Was it the Republic? Like it's like a
The,
public.
the Republic made Starlight.
So it's a public utility.
There is some commentary on monopolies because there are two like they're not crime families, they're more like oligarchies, the Graf family and the Santeca clan. And we knew Lor Santeca from The Force Awakens. He was the one that had the map to Luke that Poe was with in the beginning. And they are charting the new hyperspace lanes to the Outer Rim. And their families have done this for many years, and they're very wealthy and famous for being hyperspace charters because it's super dangerous to figure out these lanes and travel through hyperspace without knowing how to do it. And so these two families are like massively wealthy for doing it.
But they're criminals?
Well,
So they're kind of calling what every billionaire is in,
I know.
in this world.
The Grafs are more criminals, but I'm not sure exactly if they are criminals because of their hyperspace charting.
Yeah.
The Santecas have this one really old lady, Mari Santeca, who has a unique way to see hyperspace, and she can chart these unique paths that the Nihil capture her, and then they use the paths, and they can like jump in and out of hyperspace in very unique and unexpected ways, and no one knows how they do it, and it's like some sort of technique that only Mari Santeca knows how to do. So there's something up with it, mystical
Interesting.
and monopolistic, and it's all really interesting. And the Santecas try to, deny knowledge of this, and there's a lot of political intrigue. And
So did Lor Santeca just like lose his family's fortune on Canto Bight or something? How come he ended up on a Jakku in a tent?
was Lor Santeca poor? I don't think so.
He was in a tent on Jakku.
I feel like that was
Not-
a
not
meeting
lavish
spot,
lifestyle.
He was for a day. I don't think that was necessarily his home
Yeah.
or anything.
I don't think so.
And I certainly don't think it implies that he was a down and out guy.
It was a rendezvous. I assumed he was probably like a Mon Mothma-esque person, right? Who has kind of a bigger reach.
He's in the comics and some books.
He's in the Poe Dameron comic a little bit.
He
What book is he in?
Shadow of the Sith. He's hunting Sith relics with Luke Skywalker, and
sounds
he's
so
in the
cool.
Rise of Kylo Ren books. He takes Luke and Ben Solo to either Iram or Arano. I forget which one.
Oh,
but
that's right. And when the
yeah, so he's like a
flashback when they were running missions together.
yeah, he's like kind of a not bounty hunter,
Adventurer.
like a Indiana Jones type guy,
Yeah.
a treasure hunter. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, moving on from a cell service. I can't believe that got answered. I'm very excited. Do you think you have to pay for that though?
I believe the Republic fronts the cost.
Okay, so that makes sense.
I'm not
It's
certain.
a public good.
But like I said,
That's-
because
okay,
the
yes.
Republic's mantra is we are all the Republic, and they do not
Yeah.
have a price barrier for that.
Oh, man, I
the
gotta.
High Republic is just a lesson in the downfall of communism.
Yeah. So
Basically, I guess.
this should also go with
It
without
works in
saying
theory.
that everything that I'm talking about, I know that like obviously we're thinking in a very small. I'm thinking specifically in a very small-minded U.S. thought system in the fact that I'm sure, obviously, like Luke just said, again, with the Republic, thinking that this is just like a service, and I know that the world is so much bigger and the galaxy is so much bigger in this universe, and I'm just using my kind of small perspective of everything and kind of trying to implant it in how Star Wars works. So I'm very aware of that as well. But moving on to like services, what do you think therapy is like in the Star Wars universe? Because, yeah, because if you're thinking of Yoda's species, right? 900 years old. Obviously, if they're just say they married a human, right? Lifespan, right? Maybe like 80 something years old.
That's got to be too big of a difference. You
okay.
can't fall in love authentically.
Oh, I'm
with someone
sure
that's
out
900
of the
years
entire
old.
galaxy, though, there's got to be. I would just say they meet though when they're the perfect age, right? He presumably is it just say a couple hundred years old already, and just say she is 23, and she. Well, that's so weird saying that, I guess, age wise, but like if he's a couple hundred years old, but they're mentally the same age, basically, right? Obviously, Grogu's 50 and is still a little baby child.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if they're at the same age, presumably that person is going to have multiple partners throughout their lifespan. And in order to deal with that, I assume you're going to need some sort of therapy because everybody you know is going to die. And then if there are like hybrids, is the lifespan then in half of what Yoda's species is, but like double of what the human species would be?
Maybe that's why the only surviving members of Yoda's species that we know of are Jedi, because they're so good at celebrating when someone becomes reunited with the Force and not dwelling on the past and the loss.
And not forming attachments.
Very
Just-
true.
That just blew my
That being
mind.
said, I take back all of it, and you're about to also, because Maz Kanata is also 1,000 years old and is not a Jedi. So she's going
true.
through all this too. She wants to date Chewbacca.
She's old and horny. So like what I'm saying is like any species
Just
that we
how
haven't
I
even-
like them.
I also just learned Dexter Jetster, also very old. He is in the High Republic comics in Phase 2, which takes place 400 years before the Skywalker saga.
No way.
So he is at least 400
Is he
plus
still-
years old. He's an adventurer, kind of another actually Indiana Jones
What?
type relic hunter.
He went from Indiana Jones to a deli cook.
Yeah, doesn't that sound like a great retirement?
No.
Just
Well,
lay,
it should be the other way. Like,
just
oh, I
lay
used to
low.
be serving up burgers at a greasy deli on Coruscant. Now I'm
He's a
hunting
down on his
treasure.
luck person.
No, I think it's a nice sort of cap
You
on
think
his
that's
story. that
all he wanted to do, but he was
he
forced
just
into a
wanted to
life
move
of
to
relic
Coruscant
hunting?
and open this Earth.
Dexter's
I don't know
Diner.
the word for that either. 1940s inspired from this Earth and themed diner.
That's funny. It's a 1950s This Earth themed diner. It's
Right.
not just a natural diner there. It's specifically this Earth theme. Anyway, but like, how do you deal with therapy then in that scenario where presumably the therapist has not lived through this, so it's all hearsay?
That's true.
And how do you trust that person then? If you're like, oh, this is how you would mentally handle that or deal with that, but it's like I've had 4 wives because I'm 900 years old. Like how do you? I mean, maybe it just takes a couple hundred years also between wives.
So I think according to one of the role-playing games where it gives like stats on like different species and stuff, Rhodians have a very short life, right? Isn't
yeah,
the
I think
average
like 20 or
lifespan-
30 years.
Yeah. So presumably Rhodians are just like banned from being a therapist because it's like, what are you going to accomplish in that short time? Like you said, like if you're trying to console like a Yoda species person and this person's just like, well, you know, I hear this helps, but I never know anyone that died, and I'm probably going to die tomorrow. So
Yeah, but
Yeah,
like,
that's interesting. How fast do you think they age? Because we see that child Rhodian who may or may not be Grogu in the may or may not be Greedo in the Phantom Menace, and we don't know
I
how
thought that
old
was
he is,
confirmed
but
to be
he's
Greedo in a
adolescent.
deleted scene.
I think it is confirmed to be Greedo in a deleted scene, but what do you think that really means in terms of canon? Is that really Greedo?
That's a great intersection. I
But
don't
like
know.
you said,
But
that's not canon
yeah.
fully as we get the the blaster helmet, the blaster bolt in the helmet from Cad Bane and Boba Fett, and that's
right.
same thing, right? It's
But
like, well,
what I was saying about this Rhodian that may or may not be Greedo is that he is an adolescent, similar in development to
Yeah.
young Annie, but he might be 6 months old
Yeah.
if the Rhodians live and die so quick.
yeah. So then if they just say that he's in college and he falls in love. What does that look like? That's
Yeah,
so
gotta
depressing.
Gotta
That's
fall
so
in love
sad.
with a Rhodian.
Yeah, exactly. You can't help it.
Also, for mating purposes, I can't imagine. Are there any examples of cross species besides Kanan and Kara? Kanan and Hera?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Is there? I don't think so.
I can't think of any.
Oh man, that's a great.
There
point,
there
Luke.
were theories that Amilyn Holdo was a half breed between human and Twi'lek because Jason Syndulla had green hair and Amilyn Holdo had purple hair, and purple is also a Twi'lek color.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I believe that was confirmed in the Leia Princess of Alderaan that she has human parents.
Interesting. That's
just
so.
just a fashion choice she's making.
Yeah. Plus,
in
and
Rise
we
of
don't
the-
know
in-
because don't we think we haven't seen episode 3 of Ahsoka yet at the time of recording this, but Jason might be in it. But we don't know what color Jason's hair is because I think in the Lego minifig released of him, he does not have green hair.
What?
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Here I am putting it on the internet. Quote me on it.
Yeah. Here you are.
In Rise of the Red Blade, Escata Karis is in a relationship with Towlin, who's a
Oh, that's right.
Twi'lek as well.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna make a joke and say that Holdo was also like a Kaminoan because her neck is so long in that movie.
That's just Laura Dern. She's
I
like
know
human.
there's something so long about her neck in that movie specifically, and I
It's
thought,
just the fashion choices. That's
I was-
obviously a normal neck.
I know it 1000% is. I thought you were gonna set that joke up, and I was about to die because I feel like I've had that thought before.
So my mind's just whirling now, and Matt, this probably is on your list, but I just want to jump ahead if it is.
Yeah.
So what does just healthcare in general look like in Star Wars? You
Good.
got a million species. How do you take care of all of them?
That is on my
Droids.
list, and that's a great point. I was just so here's what I have written down specifically is, what is it like being a vet or a doctor? Are degrees more specific, hyper specific, right? So you have to, be just say like a doctor, but only in X amount of species. So presumably each practice would have X amount of doctors because they would only, have maybe some overlap. And then what do you do with sick days and stuff too? But I was going to say, is it more hyper specific for degrees to get in the medical field, or is healthcare kind of shit?
I would imagine it's similar to the difference between doctors and veterinarians in our Earth because they both deal with the medical body, a medical body, and they're different, but like in movies and TV, when like someone is down and out from the law and they got to get medical help on the down low, they go to a vet and the vet's like, "Oh, I treat dogs. I can't treat you." And they're like, "Do it anyway." And it's like, they can.
Yeah.
So I think it's like that.
But like even the Inquisitor having 2 stomachs,
Yeah.
that's dicey. I don't know.
Escata Karis having 2 hearts.
Right.
Yeah,
Do you think there's a surgeon just operating like, "Oh, shit. There's another. We're actually fine. Just get rid of
so
this
it's
one."
open hearts surgery instead in that world.
Yeah, I guess. Dr. Quadpaw from Andor has 4 hands. That's got to be better for surgery.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, it's
Oh,
not
man.
like surgeons seek out people with 4 hands,
So-
but they obviously have an
Oh,
advantage.
that's right. We have seen a biological doctor in Star Wars because at first I was thinking like, oh, robots, that makes sense. But then I was going to say, how good are robots at treating people anyway? Because the only time we see them is at the end of Revenge of the Sith when they're trying to deliver Padme's baby.
And she dies.
Yeah, they can't even say why she died.
we just
too.
talked about that
very
not that long
bad.
ago.
Very bad healthcare.
Yeah.
I was going to ask what we were just talking about, where the robots or the droids were really bad, and she dies.
I mean, we see droids doing medical procedures in a lot of other times. Luke getting his new hand every time someone's in Bacta.
But do you think that's more of a cosmetic thing?
Sabine
man.
got stabbed and healed. That was all droids.
So then, do you?
Yeah, that could be. I feel like
That
that's
was a
just
hospital
Bacta, though.
room.
I feel like
Yeah,
Bacta
it's
is
true.
just like a cure for everything. If it can't be cured with Bacta, then you're just screwed.
Yeah, it's the
Again, another plug for the High Republic. They are growing Bacta for the first time in Phase 1 of the High Republic and talking
Oh.
about how revolutionary it's going to be. And there are certain big
Oh, they have no
corporations that
idea.
sell medicine that don't want it to become, popularized because it'll put them out of business.
so in the High
It's really
Republic, it's
interesting.
only medical. It's only for medical purposes, like pot.
The Bacta?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You have your Bacta card.
Boy, this High Republic sounds more and more like communist propaganda to me.
Oh, but only in the best ways.
Do you think then we've talked about this before? Do you think if you get a limb cut off, which in Star Wars is very likely,
Dime a dozen.
Definitely
you-
more likely than in our Earth.
is that covered under your insurance, or do you think that is a full out of pocket expense and that's a cosmetic thing?
Well, that's very interesting because it definitely depends on what era. The High Republic, I think they cover it completely. The Galactic Empire, they got it. Do they even have healthcare coverage?
I don't know, but how does Luke get that so quick?
Well, the Rebellion had their own healthcare, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you're gonna
They
put
had
soldiers on
money.
the front line, you
Yeah.
gotta at least offer to
Yeah,
heal
but
them.
I feel like the rebellion it's not really an organized thing. I mean, it's an organized thing, but it's underground, right? It's like not. It's not like we have. Here's our headquarters. Here's like the UN. It's like
Yeah, no, they just had fleet and hospitals and medical frigates in the fleet.
that's
Is
so
my
dicey
understanding.
because there's
In
no.
other bases, we saw Luke in a back to tank on Hoth.
We know the Resistance had a medical frigate because that's what that one guy was piloting that fell behind when
Yeah.
they say the medical frigate is almost out of fuel and then it blows up.
That's true. All right. Well, I think I've got.
We all agree,
sorry.
though. The conclusion was that the healthcare in Star Wars is just shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on what era, I would be comfortable going into the High Republic era. Maybe the Galactic Republic from like the prequels, but I doubt it.
And depending on what it is, if you just need something that requires backed up, quick fix. If you need some
Yeah.
sort of surgery specialized to your species, you're going to essentially a vet.
Right.
Maybe that's what I can't tell. That's why I'm asking.
I'm also thinking about video games. In Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, they have just stims that replenishes your health.
Yeah.
What's got to be in there? Just Bacta?
I feel like that's gotta
Whatever
be-
your injury is,
I don't know,
heal it
but-
up with this little injection.
RFK would hate it.
I feel like that's got to be like the equivalent to morphine or whatever the soldiers were taking during World War II. It's like it doesn't really heal you; it just gives you a quick boost.
Yeah.
I played through Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, and let me tell you, if Cal Kestis has taken this much morphine under my control, there's no way he's making out of the game. He is dying for 10 different other reasons. And we also have the Battlefront games where you just go and stand next to some pill droid and it heals you.
Interesting.
That's free of charge. You
Yeah.
just drop those in a few battle areas and no one even gets injured.
Yeah, but is that game mechanic though? What's
I know,
between
that's
game?
not canon.
Yeah.
Jedi Fallen Order is canon though, so
Yeah. I'll take that. What are you thinking, Max?
No, nothing. I just
Okay.
have an itch.
How are you doing on time as well? Because I know I really want to watch Ahsoka. My palms are sweaty, but I also have a couple more to get through, and I don't want to. I can also do a part.
Do a couple more. It's like 30 minutes.
I can also do a part 2
you
of
could
this
you
later.
could do a couple more, or you could save them for Force for Thoughts for future episodes because these all seem like a good Force for Thought.
That's true. There's a couple more I want to dive into, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, and I'd almost want to do a part 2 some other time. But I'm just going to do like 2 more maybe and see where we land. Yeah, I want to do 2 more to see. Yes, because there's like, yeah, I want to do 2 more. Is that cool?
Yeah.
It probably won't take as long. All right, switching topics to the hottest topic, blaster control. Where are we feeling about blaster control? I assume kind of maybe similar to gun control. Are the regulations? What is it like going across planet lines? Or does every blaster have a different, does it have to be registered? Obviously, when you have things, obviously this is where the scum and villainy comes in a little bit, right? And this is, presumably a different world, different galaxy where, I would say you're probably just not going to blast somebody for no reason, but we all watched the beginning of Rogue One where Andor kind of does that, so not totally true, but like presumably those are stolen or made specifically for them. But what do you think that control, if any, is? I mean, you have people walking around with lightsabers, so like if you have if lightsabers exist, are you really worried about blasters in comparison, or are you like?
Before I get into just whatever my ideas are, I'm trying to think of in-universe experiences with this. In The Mandalorian, he has to give up his guns, even though he says it's part of his religion, to take that passenger freighter.
Oh man, what a end-all be-all. Scientology would rule
I know.
in Star Wars.
In Rebels, they intercept a black market trade of those bioweapons that destroys Lasan. So there is some sort of control for the weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Is there no control for smaller weapons?
That's what I'm saying,
Other than
yeah.
just not bringing it on public transport?
And with the Empire just kind of looming, I mean, throughout the entire history of the movies, at least, in that canon, I almost feel like it's like second nature to be like, just in case, all the time.
Leia claims Alderaan has no weapons. We don't know if that was true or not, but
Have you
that's interesting.
have you seen?
Well, she also said she was on a diplomatic mission, and based on the ending of Rogue One, we know for a fact that was
Oh
just
yeah,
not
I mean
true.
she lies here and there, but I
Like
don't know.
her
Do you think
on-
she was lying when she said we have no weapons?
I'm going to go back and say this, that I think that Leia is a liar. I mean, again, her saying that she remembers her mom, flat out lie.
Yeah.
We love Princess Leia, but yeah, she's a pathological liar. I would say that, yes, she is lying about not having weapons. How can you say that? That is such a sweeping
How
statement.
does she
It was
know?
a pretty desperate time. She had to toss something out there.
Yeah.
You know what? Can you imagine if that was actually true and Leia's actually terrible and anybody that is caught with a weapon is just immediately executed? But then how are they executed?
Someone's got weapons.
The Empire apparently hangs people.
And what does this mean
I'm still
for
thinking
ships?
about
You could do that
too?
without
I always
weapons.
thought about this with the ship situation. Like,
Yeah.
how does every ship have guns on them?
That's got to be like the equivalent of tinting your windows in the front window. Is be like, you can buy this off market, but
But if you get
you
caught
know
with
somebody.
it,
Yeah, you know somebody you can add them to it. Because that actually leads into my other
because
question a
Luthen
little bit too.
Rael
Mhm.
in
Rael?
Andor, is that how it's pronounced? No.
Johnny Royale.
He had like his ship, like it was like a transformer, like it like undid itself, and like the gun little popped out of it. You know.
I don't want to think about how much that costs to fix.
So clearly he's trying to hide the fact that he has weapons on board.
Yeah.
So there must be some rule against it.
Yeah, then who's making that? Oh, man.
You think that's because there's a rule against it, or because he's pretending to be honest and good antique salesman on Coruscant? And so why would he have blasters? You think it's just part of his...
Because literally everyone else does. If there's no rule against it, I would do it too.
Can you imagine drunk driving and having like a weapon just naturally, like basically a trigger
Smoking
away?
one too many death sticks and flying the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, what does that look like? Man, what does insurance look like on that then? If every ship has a weapon, oh, I mean, if you get in an accident, you're paying premiums. Let alone that. Oh my god, that's insane. So my last thing that I also want to bring up, we can talk about blaster regulations all day, but is I guess ships themselves or even speeders. What's the license looking like if you have to get your speeder license versus your ship license? Like, how old do you have to be to actually do that? You know, we're 15 years old to get our temps and then driving at 16. And I assume, just say, you're able to do that with a speeder. But what is that like? Do you have to get your speeder license and then your ship license? Much like getting a motorcycle license after you get your regular license. Or is it just completely lawless? And then on top of that, my last thing, and we can open this up for discussion as well, is how much does any of this cost? Because I can't imagine having a ship that flies more than a handful of people. Like the Naboo Starfighter, that's like a common person ship, I'd say, right? It's a one-person passenger. But if you're going to the Millennium Falcon, like that has to be your house too, right? And that has to be like where you live, because I can't imagine you live in a 2-bedroom apartment next to one of the huts and owning the Millennium Falcon. Because where's that price difference like?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah,
Just
me
start-
too.
Just starting with your comment that the N1 Starfighter is like a normal passenger ship. Is it a normal passenger ship? Because it's like a dogfighter. That's like taking an Apache attack helicopter as your mode of transportation.
That's like
just flying around.
The only one. I mean, I guess not like completely mode of transportation, but like if you have like a speeder to go for like your day-to-day work.
Right, I'm trying to think of a
Or-
ship that flies through space that doesn't have
Yeah.
guns, and the only one I can think of, and I'm not even certain, is Dooku's Solar Sailor from Episode 2. That seems like a good transit ship.
Yeah. And what if you work, different planet? You know, you work on a different planet, on a different planet. Like, you're going to have some sort of, obviously, some sort of ship.
Mm-hmm.
Can huts fly? Have you ever seen a cockpit that could accommodate a hut?
Oh, so what are we looking at the motor industry now, too?
I think huts get flown by people.
I mean, this is, again, just one more thing. Another feather in their cap for how they managed to overcome so many struggles.
We're all hut fans now?
They have accomplished a lot.
Huts
Think
are the
about all the
left-handers.
setbacks they have.
Man,
And they have become a respected crime family.
that's true. So, anyway, any other thoughts on ships and licenses and...
I have no thoughts on licenses. I've never considered that, because some species, like we were saying, Rhodians can be 1 year old and a full-grown adult.
I know, that's what's...
So it can't be based on age unless it's by species by age.
So then that's going to be on a test then, right? But then you're also looking at, like, just say, one of the huts is going to go fly. There's no way they're able to fly normally, you know?
Yeah, they got to get a custom-built ship.
Yeah.
I mean, granted,
Or a wheel?
Tatooine is a notoriously lawless planet, but Anakin was only, how old was he in Phantom? 9?
9.
He was flying.
Yeah, that's insane.
He was competing.
Well, that's pods.
That's poor parenting.
She was a
Is
slave.
Is Shmi a bad mother?
Yeah.
She
Honestly,
said she didn't want to allow him to do it, but Watto forced him. Shmi is a good mother. We will not be slandering her in this episode. Thank
I'm
you.
going to think about it a little more. I'm not going to commit to that yet.
yeah, they're... Oh, man, I don't know. I saw a poster the other day for Phantom, and she's on it, and like it's the worst photo of her I've ever seen. It's clearly just a screenshot. Like it was an actual poster that was out there. Oh, I think this is so random. At your daughter's birthday party, Luke and I was showing Luke this Jar Jar Binks candied tongue
Yep.
little figure thing, and it was with that, I think in the background there was a poster of like Phantom Menace, and it looks all cool, but then Shmi's just like looking. It's clearly just like a screenshot of her like turning away, and it's for some reason so big on the poster, and now I kind of want it.
Interesting.
Anyway, Max, do you have any thoughts on license
No,
cost effectiveness of ships?
I was just gonna say that Shmi Skywalker being advertised for the Phantom Menace is kind of like all the promotion of Liv Tyler's character Arwen in Lord of the Rings, where they were just really excited to have Liv Tyler, so they were like, "We're gonna promote the crap out of her," and she had like the smallest role in all the movies.
That's true. It's the classic Zendaya and Dune.
Is Pernilla August a famous actress? I've never seen her in anything else. She plays Shmi. If
Yeah,
you
I
didn't know.
no. And by our reactions, no.
I
She
was
is not
gonna
a
say
famous-
that answered my question.
The fact that I've never heard that name in my life.
The fact that we've heard her character name more is very telling.
Shmi was played by an actress?
There are some other ones that I could get through, and nothing that is long. We talked about accents as well. Oh, the last one I really want to talk about. How many holidays do you think are observed in like an office job with all these different religions, with all these different species?
That's interesting. So at my job, we actually have a lot of coworkers in Argentina, and it's kind of like a running joke that they never work because there's just so many random Argentinian holidays. And it's like, oh, it's the anniversary of this person's death, and it's like, well, how many people die all the time? Like, you guys are always off celebrating something.
Awesome.
When do you guys work?
That's hilarious. Yeah, it does. So can you imagine in a massive galaxy where things are? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's got to be a lot more significant. I mean, it's already happening in our Earth with just Max's job in Argentina. It's a whole galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, that's interesting.
I know.
Imagine going to a planet like Coruscant and then just being like, why is this restaurant shut down? They're like, oh, the owner is Anzellan, and it's a holiday.
Right.
Like, when is this place open? Do you have a website? Do websites exist?
There's
Where's
the hollow. There's the
Google?
HoloNet.
Yeah, I assume they got
That's
something
space
like
internet.
that.
Oh man. Oh, the HoloNet. So you're just like teenagers just watching porn on hollow pucks.
I have not thought about the porn industry, but yeah.
Oh,
Right?
I don't want to get down that rabbit hole because I'm already being like, how does that even work?
You've thought a little bit about the porn industry. We talk about sex slavery during the Book of Boba Fett review because we were saying how the
That
male
is
sex
interesting.
slave
I've definitely
is-
thought about sex slaves in Star Wars because of, Leia and a lot of other implications, but I've never thought about the porn industry. But yeah, I mean, Hollows, it's got to be way more profitable than just 2D stuff in our Earth. So
It's
it's got to be
definitely-
a lot of money in that.
Probably banned on Alderaan, I would assume as well. There's no weapons, probably no porn.
They seem hoity-toity. Yeah,
I
I
think so.
bet they.
Do you think that's why Tarkin blew up that planet? It wasn't because of Leia. He was like, they wronged me once. I'm gonna believe that's why. Okay, everybody. I have a lot more to go through, which I'll kind of just like drop at the end, maybe for thoughts on different episodes, because I really want to get into, what are the taxes looking like? If you are a Jedi and you commit suicide, can you just become a Force ghost? So it's kind of like null and void. What is that looking like? So there's a lot more that I'm thinking about consistently. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that I, especially with the Ahsoka, I'm going to be paying attention to every little thing in the background and wondering as well, and wondering how much people are paying for rent depending on their size. Does anybody have any force for thought?
I do have force for thought. Like I said, I've been rereading and reading for the first time some of the High Republic books, and one of the characters, Chancellor Malo, is a Quarren, which is the fish species with the tentacles like a squid. The only one I can think of is the pirate guy from Star Wars Resistance, which I know no one has seen. But it's a fish species, and that's all that matters for this story. But
There was a Clone
there
Wars
was-
arc with them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in Star Wars a lot, but someone offers him something preposterous or something, and he says, "Good depths, no," because in a fish world, the
That's so
gods are in the
interesting.
depths beneath them, as opposed to in our world, they're in the heavens above us. So instead
Yeah.
of saying good heavens, you say good depths.
I'm
And
going to
it's
start
that-
saying that.
It's that kind of just very small storytelling. The book does not go into detail about that line at all. It just moves right on. But it's that kind of little interesting thing about these different species and this lore that makes me so fascinated with this universe.
Yeah. Man, I love Star Wars because we can have conversations like this, like that, and we can consistently think about all the intricacies of Star Wars.
Well, let us know what you think. If you have any other ideas about the intricacies of Star Wars and how a galaxy far away can possibly exist, you can reach out to us. We can be found on TikTok, Instagram, the website formerly known as Twitter, now X, and I think we did confirm recently that we are no longer on Threads. So stop
No.
searching for us there.
Check it just in case, though.
No, we're definitely not on it. I've actually never even opened it. I don't know if it took off. Are you guys on
It
Threads?
seems promising.
I've never-
We thought it was going to be the next big thing.
Big swing and
Yeah,
a miss
which
in
is-
my mind.
All of us just trendsetters,
But
as
let us
we're
know.
all wearing shorts and long socks.
Let us know. You can reach out to us at any of those places and comment, subscribe, however you're listening to us. Give us a rating, whatever it is you can do. It helps us and goes a long way.
See you, Sammy.